Talking about music in your films, what possessed you on the eve of the charge to have the soldier, the officer, listening to the Pearl Fishers? It's so unexpected, yet so haunting, so right.
Well,
Not many people pulled that kind of thing off, you know.
I didn't know if it would work. Otherwise, I would have cut it out. But I heard the opera. I went to the opera first time I'd seen it in Melbourne before the shoot, just by chance.
You saw the opera?
Yeah.
Wow. It's not rarely staged.
They're rarely staged, and this was the Victorian opera, and that duet came on, and I thought, because I was so alive to anything that might be useful in my film, the way you open up as a person at the time that you're working or beginning to a film. Anything can be relevant, a comment, a chance remark, a poster on a wall. So in this case, it was these two male voices entwined.
Yes.
Although I didn't know what they were saying because of the language, but it didn't matter. I knew that these were two friends. I didn't know that the friendship had been betrayed till I read the libretto, but I thought, this is Frank and Archie. Wasn't that interesting? And then as I went on, I thought, I wonder if I could have it. I could put it in, if it could be in it, in the soundtrack. What if the officer somebody had a wind-up record player? I read somebody did. Somebody took a possum to the front line from Australia, tucked in his jacket. I took any kind of stuff. So I put it into the story. And then it had all sorts of resonance. Just naturally there. It was
the height of civilization.
It was the height of course, but it was the height of civilization.
Yeah.
And here they were destroying each other, and the irony of that. And I think it was something of such beauty in amongst the tragedy of the loss of young lives that was irresistible and painful. And I knew I wasn't going to show. I'd made a decision not to show any gore, any blood, guts. I felt that was too easy to show the horrors of war. The anti-war film idea, which was a phrase invented by a publicist, let's be honest. There are wars and there are wars. Some wars you have to fight, some shouldn't be fought. But anyway, here was a case where I could say more about destruction and death through that man listening to that music, with the distant thump of shells and the knowledge that, in the morning they have to go over the top.
But nobody's doing that kind of thing with music.
Is that so?
Yeah. Whether you recognize it or not, it's there. And similarly at the end of, we talked about this before, at the end of Master and Commander. Oh yes, the enemy officer got away, but let's play some Boccherini first.
Do you know I loved in Keith Richards' recently published biography that he talks about how he says of he and Mick Jagger, he said, we're like Aubrey and Maturin, in that cabin playing different our music together, very different people.
Now, okay,
that'd be interesting casting.
Are you surprised when you hear these kinds of reactions to a scene like that? And somebody must have raised their eyebrows and said, "You're going to do what?"
You mean
to shoot the ending like that? It's an anti-ending in a way.
Yeah, I think you could say that of the last act of the film. Really, I mean, yes, another studio hierarchy might have said, this has to be the Battle of Trafalgar. I mean, you cannot simply build up all of this emotion, get to know these characters, without putting them in a situation where they're trying to save at least England, if not the world. So, remarkably, it was approved, and that's because of Tom Rothman, then the co-chairman of the studio, and with Jim Giannopoulos, his partner there, still work together. And that's because Tom loved those books. And so he went, to some extent, perhaps against his instinct.
And there's music making in the books, so it's not like it's a stretch.
We're talking about making one of those books, or an amalgam of those books, into a major feature film with a great whopping budget, was a risk. It was a real risk.
Yeah, but people who know the books would not be surprised that they would be making music like that.
No, but you're talking about it being the ending.
Yeah.
Rather than...
you deliberately pull back and give us this lovely lyrical collusion between these two men.
They could have sang the Pearlfishers.
Look, no, I came out of there speechless. I thought, who else would do something like that?
What a lovely reaction to have.
Well, I'm surely not alone in that.
Well, I guess not. You know, it has its fans.
Talk about any other examples where you have pulled off really a kind of an unexpected musical element into a scene that maybe other people might have thought it would work, but by gosh, I'm going to do this. I can think of many, but I'm just curious if you had some favorite examples where you've pulled music into a shot, either diegetic or not.
Well, when you started the question, I thought you were going to say, refer to Linda Hunt, because, there I was pulling off something outrageous. Not to do with music. To do with music.
Yeah.
But in order to help her, I was looking for anything that would help her. It was such an undertaking. She'd said to me, I will do this if you never lose faith in me, if you promise you will believe in me, because if I felt that go, given this charade is not part of the plot, then I don't think I can do it, play a man. So I was looking for anything to help her, and I'd been playing this very powerful piece from the Four Last Songs.
Oh, the Strauss.
The Strauss.
Oh.
So, and it had been inspiring me, and I said, look, I don't know if this might help you, but there's something in Kiri Te Kanawa's voice and this particular Strauss piece that is transcendent and is something to do with this film. I don't know what it is. She said, can I have a copy? I gave her a copy. And I forgot about it, because I don't use music to brainwash actors, because your musical taste is very personal. She came back to me and said, I'm playing it and it's helping me, it's getting me through this. And I said, well, maybe the characters got it. So I put it into the movie. And she tells Mel and so on. And at the very end, they sort of said, you should use Maria Callas. And I thought I got the Maria Callas, but I preferred
different kind of voice.
Kanawa, and it had become the film. And we used that, although it's anachronistic. Really.
But then, these are classical examples. You certainly feel free for jazz and tribal rhythms and things like that too.
Yeah. Well, that very much was very important in the sort of source music, as we call it, in The Plumber. Where she was playing her tribal music. Max really was the tribal man. His music was, the kind of Dylan-esque type music he played, that he'd composed. But she, when he came in, eventually would put on her Burundi tribesmen,
right,
thumping their drums and things. So it was an interesting switch in a way. Each was playing the other's music in some way.
And even Andie MacDowell, we see her responding to the drumming in the streets right off the bat. We kind of know that she's capable of what will happen with Depardieu ultimately.
That kid was so amazing. He was one of those street drummers, and he became a nightmare. He didn't want to turn up, and then he sort of said, will this film be shown in a number of countries? Yes. Will it be shown more than in one theatre? Oh, yeah, lots of theatres. Then I want money for each theatre. Not, you've just given me money for one.
Street smart.
Oh, God. Well, he held us to ransom. But he was extremely talented. I hope he's gone on to find a life in music. It's that good.
I know of no film, though, of yours where I think the tribal drums are more important than Green Card.
Yeah.
Because that really pulls those characters together.
Yeah.
Which leads me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I have all these favorite moments. When Depardieu sits down at the keyboard in that highfalutin society party. Talk to me about that scene. Bebe Neuwirth's expression is to die for.
Well, it was just.
Where did that scene come from? I mean.
Well, I'd had a piano put in, because I'd taken the name Foray in the script. So.
Right.
Is that how you pronounce it, Foray?
Yeah.
So I then got listening to some of Foray's music, and I said, look, you're just using the name. You're not who you seem to be, and you're a fake, but you might get asked to play, but maybe you really are a composer. Maybe we don't know. So I had a piano put in his hotel room, and I said, why don't you practice some bits? He couldn't play, but he did. He was kind of funny with it, so it went in just like that. It's just like from rehearsal.
How many takes? Does he just bash away?
It's different each take. but it didn't matter. It kind of worked, you know.
It's the Depardieu songbook.
Yeah, but then we had, the sting and the tail of it, which is, was sort of, where he really then did express something about, poverty or the city, and, he was,
Well,
poetic.
it's the musical equivalent to Whitman's Barbaric Yawp.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yes, yeah.
Now, that's a funny moment. I mean, the whole film, I think, is undeservedly neglected in terms of its humor. The movie is hilarious.
Is that right? Is there?
Don't you think?
I've forgotten it,
And he works in a nightclub called Africa.
Yeah. I think one of my favourite moments was when they were writing letters to each other. He was supposedly writing from the jungle.
Yeah, right.
My dear, the elephants are restless tonight.
Great line.
Yeah.
Great line.
And she,
Yes.
I think, had some, and then posing for photographs. And we had a lot of fun doing that. I mean, we've got to give the audience the fun, but hopefully we did.
That could almost be an epigraph to all your films. The elephants are restless.
It was the elephants are restless. I thought it was a film that should be seen at 5:00 in the afternoon. It was just a perfect sort of late matinee or something. I never thought it was a night out.
Working with Depardieu, did he love that scene? I mean,
we had a great collaboration. He came here, and stayed here while I was working on the script, because I wanted each scene to be handcrafted. So we read it together. I still have somewhere a dusty recording of the two of us at my place at Palm Beach. And he introduced me to a lot of wine, and we talked to people, had dinners, and went out and about, and tried to, as I've never done with a film before, to get to know each other because of the language problem. And my French was better than his English at first. It ended up well the other way. And if we meet today, it would be English. But at that stage, what we mostly talked with was the present tense. I go, you stay. You come, me go. So it was very much, we were like children. You couldn't express any complicated thoughts. You had to abandon them. You could only be expressive through mime or movement or whatever, or visual jokes, or this sort of, very abbreviated, reduced vocabulary that we had to deal with. So no complications came into the friendship. There were no disagreements about anything because we couldn't get into those conversations. So you kind of, in a way, at least touched base with childhood, with probably about 16 years of age, 17, something like that, when you were still, a boy. And so a lot of the humour, a lot of the feeling in that film, the majority of it, I think, has come from that period of weeks we spent together. I was in France as well, and then in Australia. We went in New York. We did things like we went down to City Hall and watched some weddings. We asked if we could go out and watch some civil ceremonies, and Gerard ended up giving a bride away, and we got to know people. And we went to the cafe across the road, and I said, this could be the Africa, and
yes,
and
yes.
so forth. So it was a film that was lived in a very real sense, as light as it was. And it was a wonderful experience.
Well, we talked about Paul Schrader yesterday, and what I call the transcendental cinema. Your ending to that film is a blueprint for what Schrader talks about, where they meet, they're in love now, but they're going to have to be apart. Well, they don't know that until they're apart. I mean, it's...
The last time I had this conversation was with Jeff Katzenberg on the pavement at Sherman Oaks outside the Preview Theatre. He said, Peter, how much money would you like to make with this film? And he said, let me put it another way. I was startled. And I said, how big do you want it to be? It could be much bigger. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, reshoot the ending.
Yeah.
He said, if they don't separate and somehow humiliate that wretched immigration officer, you will have a very big result. And I went away to think about it, and I thought, well, you could, and it's an entertainment piece, but I somehow just couldn't think my way to do that. And
there is a place in paradise reserved for you. Because that's the only way it could be. It will leave us suspended anyway.
I think so, and I mean, when you think it through, I mean, obviously she would either follow him over or not. In other words, if there was something really there, she would go to Paris.
One more music thing. We can't end this without Zamfir's panpipes in Picnic. Now, of course, the whole figure of Pan in myth has pipes and lures people into some kind of wilderness. Is the fact that we're hearing pan pipes at all part of that myth, or is it just the sound you were at?
It's an accident. It's just the sound. But then, as I mentioned before about, let sleeping metaphors lie. It was a case of, of a wonderful kind of accident. If I had thought of it, I would have done it. I probably would have. But when the producer, Jim McElroy, turned the music, came to me, I was looking for the sound. I was working with a composer, Bruce Smeaton, and I said, Bruce, I just don't think we've got the sound of the film. He said, I agree with you. He said, give me another go. I'm trying. He'd come up with all other pieces. And Jim came in one day and said, how are you doing with the sound? And he came in one morning and said, I think I've got it. It was a program on, I think, Biafra, the night before, and suffering, unfortunately, of course, still all too familiar in Africa. And he said they played this haunting music, some sort of flute. And he would, if you're interested, I'm going to ring the producer and get it. He did. I played it. I said, my God, you've just found the sound for this film.
So the fact that it's a pan pipe is just a happy accident.
Yes and no, because I had been listening to all kinds of things, and so had Bruce, thinking of all kinds of things and experimenting. So the sound we were looking for was the panpipes, because that was something to do with this film. It was, there was something pre-Christian about it, and these were the gods who were angry or something, or the Aboriginal tribal mythology was offended, whatever it is. It didn't matter. There was no explanation.
Well, it's timeless and it's seductive all at the same time.
It's beautiful. It's kind of haunting.
The first notes heard immediately somehow haunt the whole film. I mean, who could look away after that? Now, was there a recording session with him playing those?
Well, that was the next interesting thing. It turned out to be a man with an enormous ego. And I finally spoke to him in Paris, and he said, I did that some years ago with Marcel Cellier on the organ. No, you don't want that. Well, I'm not doing his accent. Heavy accent is Romanian. What you want is my new stuff, and so he sent us, and it was not what we wanted. And then began to talk to him about re-recording it, and then got nervous about it. Signals were clear, just walk away, just buy it, which is what we did. It's come off vinyl. And he then, was so successful here, he came out and did a tour, or maybe he's done more than
you made
once.
his career.
Well, here, anyway.
It's a little like Anton Karas and the Zither in Third Man.
Yeah. I don't know if that's true in Europe. I'd like to think it was. But anyway, he came out and he played his pipes.
And there's a piece of music that you quote at least twice, which is the Beethoven Emperor.
It was one of the first classical pieces I heard, and I always use the same recording.
I wondered if there was a particular...
Wilhelm Kempff.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yes, the best.
And I don't know if he's the best. I've heard others that I love the piece.
Oh, in his heyday, he was the best.
That I don't know, just, it's like breathing when I hear that. It changes my breathing. And so when I've been in a tight corner sometimes, I've, like a soldier has emergency rations, I'll reach for my Wilhelm Kempff and put it in.
So there is an example of a childhood connection with music.
Yeah. Well, I think we own 3 classical records because my mother felt we children should have some classical music in our lives. We're probably early teens and starting to listen to rock and roll, which was top 40 just getting going. And that was the Magic Flute and the Beethoven's Fifth Piano Concerto. And I forget. Brahms lullabies and Lieder and so on. And that was it, but the one that had the real effect on me was, although any of those pieces played now, of course, linked to youth, I should say.
Of course, I'm angry that at no point have I ever heard any Schumann yet.
No, I do. Well, you're going to get me to know Schumann.
We'll have to work on that. Let's see. Finally, I'm going to ask Mr. Boyd about this.
Yeah.
The opening shot of Picnic,
Yeah.
is that a rack focus, or is that a series of dissolves where you see the mist and then the rock gradually?
A series of dissolves. It was one morning we were going to work, and I stopped the car, stopped the vehicles, and we were very short on time. And those days you had to, so little time to shoot a film. Can we unpack? Can we shoot? There's a mist all around the rock. So we got the camera out and shot various setups, not knowing what we were going to use it for. And on we went. And so when we were in the cutting room, the editor, I asked the editor, maybe, or he said, I forget who, let's try that as an opening title sequence. So to some extent we were short of material or reused things, but a series of dissolves.
I think it's one of the most, I call it a shot, so it's more than one shot.
I can't remember. I'd have to look.
It's got to be the most famous thing I've ever seen in a film. That's the film, in that opening
with that
shift.
That mood that's created.
And in Master and Commander, you open it a little after the opening, when we have the fog bank and then the flash from the cannon.
Yeah.
Now again, there's an intrusion. There's
Well, in this beautiful nature, yes, there is death lurking in the mist. Beautiful ships. We look on these things as very benign. These great square-rigged sailing ships. Yet in that fog bank up ahead lies terror.
Yeah, and I think those two moments really go together. And I'm even thinking about Truman, where he's wiping away the fog on the mirror.
Yeah.
Again, we have one element intruding upon another, replacing another. You're doing this all the time.
Oh God, I must stop.